to me. Confrontation ain't nothing new to me. You could bring a bullet, bring a sword, bring a morgue, but you can't bring the truth to me. You ain't know your expectations. I don't even want your congratulations. I recognize your false confidence and calculated promises all in your conversation. I hate people that feel entitled. Look at me crazy cause I ain't invite you. Oh, you important, you the moral to the story.
Yo, this is the very first episode of a show that I like to call Reviews on CP Time, where we review movies and other things on time, most of the time, kind of, sort of. Anyway, I'm CT, the resident nerd for the Fifth Wall Studios and the regular contributor for Slice of Horror. And today, for our very first episode, we'll be reviewing Thunderbolts, which in my opinion is a much better title than the New Avengers. But anyway, and this will be a spoiler heavy review, so you've been warned. So the film kicks off with Yelena basically doing Black Widow stuff for Valentina, who is like the head of the CIA, I think. And Valentina's being impeached for I guess black ops dealings. In my opinion, it's weird because she's doing these things for the government, and so the government kind of should already know what's going on, unless she's like a deep state. I don't know exactly what she did to get impeached, but because of that, she's sending her agents out to collect the evidence, destroy the evidence, so she doesn't get impeached. And we pretty much open the movie on Yelena on one of those missions to destroy evidence. And you can tell by like how Yelena approaches the mission. She's not enthused. She's killing dudes without any type of like. There's just nothing to how she's carrying out this mission. She just doesn't want to be there. You can tell she's beyond this. She feels like the mission is beneath her, and she kind of spells this out at the like when she completes her mission, because she calls up Valentina and she tells her, "Hey, yo, I want some front facing missions. I want something above board. I'm tired of all this covert black ops stuff." And I really feel like the opening set us up for like the heart of this film, the driving force of this film, because she is definitely throwing herself. Yelena is definitely throwing herself into these missions as a way to cope with the loss of Natasha, and at the same time, you can tell that she wants to be a hero. She doesn't want to be this, black ops continuing to do red room type stuff only for the U.S. government. She doesn't want to do that anymore. She wants to be a hero, kind of like in a similar vein as her sister. And you kind of get the themes of the film from her, especially in this opening scene of like just you know addressing mental health and also wanting to be a hero. That's the overarching theme of this entire film, basically. And that's why I feel like Yelena is the best character in the movie, because she more embodies both of those themes than everybody else in the film. So she's kind of like the heart and soul of this movie, and she was my favorite character, like bar none. I mean, even though I know a lot of people like Walker and Red Guardian because Walker. I mean, they're funny. Walker's an asshole, and that's cool. But Yelena was definitely the heart and soul of this film, and that opening scene really set that into motion. At least for me, thinking about it in hindsight after watching the film twice now, yeah, that opening scene really set this film's theme into motion. So Bucky's angle in this film was kind of odd for me. After the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, I just didn't see Bucky like becoming a congressman. I mean, it's kind of weird, bro. Like, it would never fly in our world. Dude was controlled by essentially the science division of the Nazis in Hydra. And then he lived in Wakanda where he got deprogrammed, and in the MCU, America currently has beef with Wakanda. And I just don't see how dude gets elected. He sounds like the perfect Trojan horse, like a Manchurian candidate. And I'm like, who elected, bro? But in this film, he kind of plays the angle of trying to, get on the good side of Valentina's assistant in order to get inside information, in this attempt to get her impeached. I still don't know like what she did specifically, but clearly it's bad enough for, even Bucky to take a personal interest in getting evidence outside of just being a congressman, outside of the the normal pathways for an individual who works in government, which screams to me that Bucky, I mean, despite overcoming the odds and getting elected after being brainwashed for decades, he doesn't really want to be a congressman. That's what it comes off for. To me, it comes off like he doesn't really want to be a congressman. Like he doesn't really want to be in Congress because they don't do anything. That they kind of hammered that home a couple of times in the film that they don't do anything. I think a lot of people kind of glossed over that because a lot of people are saying that this isn't really a political film, or it doesn't have like certain tropes that Disney has been supposedly known for, but like they're definitely there in this film. They're all over this film. And but yeah, so Bucky tries to get the Mel, she's the assistant to Valentina, to pretty much snitch on her boss. And Mel is like, nah, player, because Valentina killed my ass. And so Bucky ends up giving her his car, and you can kind of tell that that's gonna play into the film later on. But the one thing that stuck out to me with Bucky in the entire film, but this scene specifically when they're talking at this government function, um, was that Sam being Captain America was the right choice, man. Like I'm just convinced because Bucky doesn't have the game, like he doesn't have the ability to talk and convince people, to listen the way that Sam does or Steve did. Bucky's a soldier. He's a soldier first. He's all about doing the thing, not talking about the thing. And that's also the reason why it seems like he's not a good fit as a congressman. So yeah, like he doesn't have that diplomacy, pretty much. And like, how you gonna be a Captain America without that? You end up being John Walker. So I feel like that's my own little personal tangent. Sam is definitely the best choice for Captain America, and Bucky's a great soldier. Anyways, Evil Elaine's trap was freaking obvious to me, man. Like, you're all agents working for the most untrustworthy person in the government, and she's getting rid of evidence. You don't think that, like, you're also evidence? But it's like, nah, they didn't realize that they were evidence until they were trapped in a freaking incinerator. And I mean, it's as good a way as any to get a team together because this is kind of like Suicide Squad in a sense. You get a bunch of ragtag people together, you give them a problem to figure out, they work together in that moment to figure out the problem, and then boom, they're a team. They kind of went that route with this. They had to work together to get out of Valentina's trap, and it didn't feel that contrived to me. It felt kind of organic. I like how it worked out. Just sadly, if you a Taskmaster fan, they did Taskmaster dirty as usual. I've never had a real affinity for the character, but if you're a fan of that character, you pretty much probably done with Disney by now. Yeah, but I'll get into Taskmaster a little bit more in a second. So basically, while they're fighting and whatnot, Bob ends up being released from, I guess, this high tech coffin. They thought he died during a procedure to give him powers, pretty much. And so, because he was part of a secret project that Valentina had going on, she had his body moved to this room to be incinerated with her agents and everything else, all the evidence. So in the midst of them figuring out that they were set up, Bob pops up out of nowhere, and pretty much they had to hatch a plan to escape with Bob, and it was a pretty elaborate plan. I know a lot of people think that the film kind of dragged here in this moment, but it, in my opinion, gave each character enough backstory so that, like, if you didn't watch like every single Disney Plus show or all the films up until now, you still have a gist of what each character is into and like how they function. um it is convenient that they really did nerf Ghost's powers a lot in this film, because Ghost is kind of OP in certain ways. And in moments where she would make things like super easy for them, they had some way to like nerf her powers or whatnot. And that was we first saw that in this room when she was unable to phase through the wall. They had to find a power source in order to like turn down these sonic barriers so she can get through. And I don't know why bad guys feel the need to put the power source to things inside the trap. I guess it was supposed to get incinerated too. I guess it was evidence. But when they end up getting Ghost out, everybody who's still trapped inside is thinking, yo, is she gonna come back? Because at this point, they really have no reason to work with each other, to function together as a unit. They just now figured out that they all got set up. So Bob is popped up out of nowhere. They're waiting on Ghost to get back, and then boom, the door opens, and then the room explodes. Cool, everybody's safe, and now they got to brainstorm a way to get out of the rest of the vault, because that one room was in like the bottom of this huge structure that they're in, and they're still pretty much trapped. So now they got to brainstorm with Bob, and in that moment when they have a time to take a break, they each, well, Ghost doesn't have an encounter with Bob, but they each kind of have a mental projection when they come in contact with Bob. Walker does and Yelena does, and you kind of know at that moment that there's more to Bob. I mean, if you're a comic book reader, you already know. But I like this. This entire scene was pretty good. The escape with Bob was pretty good to me. Folks felt like it dragged, but I felt like it was perfect because we got to know everybody and we kind of understood where their camaraderie came from, because they did become an impromptu team. And there were moments like this where the story slowed down and allowed them to become more acquainted with one another, and it kind of made their uncanny connection more believable. Yo, I said I was gonna get the Taskmaster. It's like, yo, justice for Taskmaster, man. Like, I'm not I'm not big on like bagging on Disney for the gender swap. That doesn't bother me at all. But Taskmaster has really not been Taskmaster. Like, like Taskmaster has a personality that's way over the top, and this Taskmaster is just this brooding, stoic, silent assassin. And they kind of did a dirty in Black Widow, and they did a dirty again in this, because she got murdered. And Valentina's trap worked with getting rid of Taskmaster, which is crazy, because just thinking about the skill set, and Taskmaster had some of the dopest freaking moves in that fight when they were trapped inside the vault. And just the offer like that, that's it. That's wow, man. So, I guess a moment of silence for Taskmaster. Uh, I kind of think Disney knows, well, not Disney, I guess Disney, but the MCU knows that they kind of dropped the ball on Taskmaster. And this is kind of their way of making up for that. Um, I do think Taskmaster will return, and it'll be a more faithful adaptation of the character, because they really just like shat on this character from this character's inception in the MCU up until now. Like, she was off very unceremoniously, and then they looted her corpse right afterwards. Like, oh my god! So yeah, Taskmaster went out like a chump, and I blame Disney. But I'm not that hung up on it. I'm not a Taskmaster fan like that. But I know the Taskmaster fans are salty. So moment of silence for Taskmaster. So they end up escaping with Bob minus Taskmaster in the most elaborate way possible. And then they get stopped at this checkpoint after Ghost steals a vehicle for them to sneak out. And so Bob becomes a decoy. It takes it upon himself to become a decoy. And he draws the soldiers to him by taking the gun and just firing it into the air. And then once they corner him, they light Bob up like it's ridiculous. Like he gets shot so many times, and it just felt like overkill for absolutely no reason. I don't know why they shot him so many times. And Valentina was telling them to like use non-lethal force prior to this even happening, and they're her guys, and they lit Bob ass up. But of course, it didn't even phase him. He was basically Superman, and bro flew off and lost consciousness midair, came crashing down, caused this huge explosion or like a shockwave. And Valentina realized that not only was her project a potential success, it was an absolute success. And only thing she could see at that moment was her way out from the impeachment. She would have the strongest individual in the world on her side. So that pretty much set the Bob Valentina team up into motion. And with her manipulative ways and Bob's like seemingly innocent demeanor. I mean, they do say Bob was a meth head. Like they say he tried meth a couple of times in the film, which is crazy. And you can tell there's something wrong with Bob beyond him having powers or being experimented on. There was something there before the experiments. But yeah, just right here, Bob and Valentina linking up, disaster. You can tell it's gonna turn out bad for everybody except Bob, because Bob is basically invincible in this shit. So Bob's shockwave leaves our heroes stranded in the desert. Red Guardian finds them. They do explain how that happened, and it's pretty organic. It's not contrived. Not that contrived. And they end up getting jumped by Valentina's men while making their escape with Red Guardian in the Red Guardian mobile. And uh, the Thunderbolts, as they're being dubbed finally by Red Guardian himself in this conversation, they're rescued by Bucky, or so they think they are, but really Bucky's there to arrest them and use them as evidence against Valentina, which, I mean, good plan, but they're really setting up a enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario here. And I, I'll call it tropey, but it works. There's a lot of that in this movie. There's a lot of very basic tropes that just happen to land right in this movie. So it was a dope scene, all in all. Speaking of landing right, though, this scene was wild to me. Like, I understand Bucky's skepticism to an extent, but he knows that Valentina would try to kill these people because they are the evidence. The reason why he arrested them was because they were the evidence. And another thing is, like, how did he get them here? He came on a motorcycle. I don't know. Maybe that's just the little things that that bother me for no reason. But this scene, what really stuck out to me was when Walker said, "Bucky, you know me." That should, like, Walker is not the best person. He's an asshole. But Walker's not a liar, man. And I don't know why it took Mel, who is Valentina's assistant, calling Bucky and letting him know that, Bob is this, Bob is real, Bob is a problem. and Valentina's manipulating him. And it took that for him to listen to them. And I don't know. I just feel like, okay, everybody in the room has a questionable past, especially you, Winter Soldier. What's the point of you not listening to them or what they have to say? I don't know. That just seems, I don't know. It was weird for Bucky, at least to me it was. But the fact that they ended up becoming the Thunderbolts basically in this scene is pretty cool. But yeah, it did all the way work for me. Bucky's skepticism just made no sense. And see, Bucky's no plan is like reason number 1500 for why he's not the best choice for Captain America. I'm gonna keep harping on that because I just don't understand the drive for people wanting Bucky to be Captain America. Like, he's not that dude. That's not his thing. It's not what he does. But I do like the fight scene we got out of this, leading up to them being basically invited upstairs to get their ass kicked by by Century. At this point, Valentina has already like brainwashed Bob into believing, that he is the world's savior and he's gonna be like her champion and whatnot. But Bob isn't stable, and Mel knows this. That's why she pretty much informed Bucky, right? So they try to go stop Bob, or at least prevent Valentina from doing anything, nefarious with Bob. And she invites them up, and she has a film crew coming. She's about to use them as a prop to roll out her latest product or her latest champion, which is Century. And it it goes about as well for the Thunderbolts as you would think. Um, but I love how evil Elaine, she's evil Elaine to me. I love how she's so arrogant in this scene, and she just knows. She knows she's about to win. She knows this is over. She has everything figured out. And Bob shows her clearly. Everybody knows the trope of the bad guy trying to control the overwhelming power trope, pretty much. So it's gonna end up for her in the end when it comes to trying to control Bob. And she kind of bites herself in the ass when she refers to him as being stronger than all the Avengers, and he equates that to being God or being a god, because the Avengers have at least one god on their roster, which is a Thor shout out. So even that was pretty organic. This film has a way of leading from one scene to the next in such an organic fashion that it feels like that could happen if this was real. And even Bob coming to the conclusion that he is more than what Valentina wants him to be played out pretty organically. So yeah, they were so not about to kick this dude's ass. This fight scene is, I've never seen a one-sided fight scene in a comic book film that was more entertaining than this. And like, it had moments of like, oh shit, they're in dire straits, and it just had moments of pure comedy. But Ghost still did the best in this fight scene because Ghost has the best powers on this team. I mean, if you don't count Century as being on the team, Ghost has the absolute best powers on this team. I feel like they didn't use them enough. But the way that Red Guardian went at him, and the way that he was just blocking, the Red Guardian, he had a whole knife combo just prepared for Buddy. And bro blocked the knife with a force field. Like, no damage whatsoever. They couldn't even touch dude. And when he allowed them to touch him, they did zero damage. It was like watching a bear fight a couple of toddlers, like dead ass. That was a dope fight scene though, but a lot of people would look at other films in the MCU and wonder how can the hero of that film overcome this overwhelming force. I see there's not a lot of discourse surrounding this film regarding that, because Century was miles ahead of anybody else in that fight. And it was accepted. And to me, it was a good fight. Also, to me, the Red Hulk fight was a good fight. But that's just me. And then the inevitable happens. Like I said before, this film has a lot of tropes. They just do them well. There's a lot of things in this film that's I've seen a million times, but the way they do it in this film just kind of stands apart. And this scene also stood apart. Just the way that uh, Bob organically came to the idea that he was a god, and then the way that Valentina was so sure that she could control him, and if not, she could shut him down or kill him. I didn't realize. Well, I won't say I didn't realize, but it kind of took me a while to come to the conclusion that that switch that they designed for Bob was meant to absolutely kill him. Um, and I can see how something like that would awaken the evil in a thing. Um, but yeah, this really was a dope scene. I like how Mel was the one who had to come around to save Valentina, who even in the moment where she thought that she might die, she showed no fear. So her bravado is more than just skin deep. Evil Elaine is a pretty dope character, all in all, but she's so shisty. She's like evil Tony Stark without the tech. Speaking of things I've seen a million times before, the superheroes rally, like they did this so well, like having Void flip out and just start well, what we're thinking that he's offing people, but he's not. When he makes them poof in the light shadows and stuff. But just the chaos that he caused with the crashing of helicopters and structures coming down, and the Thunderbolts having to act after a low moment after their defeat, and then the reconciliation between Yelena and Red Guardian regarding like his absence during her darkest moments. Right after that, they have to act as heroes together in order to defend the people from the Void, who is causing massive damage all over the place. And it really reminds me of this is a Justice League episode when there was this like hulking thing or whatever attacking Metropolis, and all the heroes with powers were gone. It was nothing but the B teamers with no powers to defend the people, and this scene really felt like that because they couldn't do anything directly to Century, but they could save lives, and that became like the core of like the Thunderbolts. Like even Ghost, who had walked off earlier, inexplicably shows up. Ghost cares a lot more than she lets on throughout the film, and I wish we would have gotten a Void moment with with Ghost, like seeing portions of her past or whatnot, what she's going through, because she comes back for them in the vault. She comes back for them with a vehicle while they're trying to escape from Valentina early in the movie. And then she comes back and she saves a guy from a falling helicopter, out of nowhere after storming off, after being told off by Yelena. So, like, she cares a whole lot more than she lets on. And I do want to know a little bit more about Ghost and what makes her tick. Like, why does she want this group? Why does she want to be with this group and whatnot? But this entire scene, this Thunderbolts assemble, this entire scene was dope. Like, they really put their foot in this fucking scene. And the ending makes perfect sense. Like there's no way they can overpower Century. So in order for them to defeat him, they have to help him come to terms with his own like internal demons. And so when they all meet up in I guess the shadow realm, uh, in the void, they all let on that they all came from different rooms that were pretty much reflections of their own internal demons, and it really wasn't a cakewalk for any of them. We saw Yelena's journey through that, and on her way to finding Bob, and we see a little bit of Bob's life prior to this, also in this shadow realm before they confront the void. And the crazy thing about this is that we're about to get like, well, there's about to be a lot of critics uh shifting here and saying that like all of the Marvel films, all the recent Marvel films are heroes talking the bad guy down. Like heroes not punching their way out of a situation, but using their words to solve problems. Because I mean, we just had that with Captain America, and him having to talk down the Red Hulk. We have that in Thunderbolts with them having to be there for Bob in a caring capacity in order to fill the void that you know was controlling him and destroying everything. And I have a feeling that in the Fantastic Four film, the next film that's coming out, we're gonna get that again because most likely they're gonna have to try to reason with Galactus. And I can just see people were harping on like sky beams early on in the MCU. And now people are gonna be like, well, all they do now is just talk out their problems. And for me, it's refreshing. And also it reminds me of comics because not every situation in comics ends like an action film. Some of them do end with two people sitting in the room and having a discussion. And this film encapsulated like both of those because it was a semi-action film that led up to an action-packed discussion at the end. And they pretty much talked Bob down and had him, I guess, shut out the void by filling that void. They're Bob's family now because Bob's past was messed up. So basically, they end up defeating the void with the power of friendship, and Valentina, who is the ever adapting snake of a freaking villain. She utilizes the entire thing as a PR stunt to introduce them as the new Avengers, and to have that be, coincide with the actual title change for the film is kind of hilarious. But the like like the post credit scenes said hashtag not my Avengers. But I do like them as the Thunderbolts. I prefer them as Thunderbolts over Avengers. But either way, I mean, it's cool with me, especially since they named them the Thunderbolts after Yelena's little league soccer team, which is a departure from the comics because they're actually named after Thunderbolt Ross in the comics, who was the Red Hulk. I keep going back to that film, but but yeah, the new Avengers. I guess that's cool. I don't know why Sam wouldn't just recruit them if that's the case, but Marvel got to have his drama, I guess. Oh, and Fan 4 was the post credit scene, the end. But all in all, I give this film 4 slices. I guess that's what that is. Those slices, or those just knives? Like, is this pizza? Or is that blood? Four of them bloody ass knives out of 5, man. It was a great movie. I fox with it. You know, I gave Captain America a 3.5. I give this a 4. It definitely was better than Captain America. It was more fun to watch. Maybe not as impactful when it comes to the overarching story, but it was definitely a much more entertaining watch than Captain America. Uh, Definitely like the pacing. People kind of, I've gotten a lot of complaints about the film from folks around me about like it dragging in certain places, but all in all, great pacing to me, good humor. Yelena's the shit. That's my favorite character in this movie. She is rounding out to be one of my favorite characters for the new Marvel phases. And yeah, great movie. 4 out of 5. Will recommend. Peace.